An iPad is a digital crutch for the insecure. Does he help draw those who's afraid to get expensive paper dirty? With this is also an interesting thing to eat. I draw on expensive paper, and it's a little bit of pain for me. Well, the paper is natural watercolor. Usually I use Italian Fabriano. This is straight, not cheap stuff. Straight, not cheap. And I here understand there that. For example, I have a roll. Immediately go to my sizes. 0 to 30 meters. At meter 20, it's a little hard for me. I really want not to make a mistake. But here it seems that the electronic thing forgives you everything. Well, and there is no problem. Here's this electronic thing. She's helping you because she'll give you a pseudo oil feel, and the feeling of coal, and the feeling of their pencil, and the feeling of Perry pen. This here is a set of sensations, which PLLA happily sells to you, and you actually buy. Use these as such some pseudo-contrived nonsense, which, with reality has virtually nothing to do with. She is related to her only marketing. So the right way out of this situation, I think, is this. You need to take a simple paper, at least start with Office, for example, and work on it with real tools. And then here are these skills, which you have built up on plain, normal paper, on regular normal pencil type tools, pen overlay, even a ballpoint pen. Need to transfer here and here to use. Adapt it to the number. If you immediately start with a number, I'm straight wangui, that you will have great difficulties with. For example, here with the format, you will learn to draw only here, in format, and that's it. Here's a swipe. Well, really, in fact, nothing will help you, because people who, do traditional drawing, they draw on these, on such, on these and out on these sizes. And it's very good. Brings your understanding of the drawing back to normal. But here, on this size, you can generally sharpen yourself into a very narrow niche. Themselves about that without suspecting. Well, I think in general then, here it is. Does not help against insecure drawing. It doesn't help vs. Well, there's fear of ruining expensive paper. You just shouldn't take expensive paper until you know what to do with it. Well, it's for its tasks, okay? And lessons on my schedule in the description of the video, like my name is Eduard Kichigin. How the sense of authorship changes when the sketch is only present digitally and not on paper. Here I will say from my experience, here are those sketches that I have here. That's these are exactly the same sketches which I have in my sketchbooks. And if I think, for example, coming somewhere, and I need to show my sketchbooks, there is, for example, I will bring an iPad, or I'll bring sketchbooks, when I will talk about my sketching technique and illustrate it in some way. And you understand here there are these nuances which determine the difference between that kind of thing and the natural thing. Sketchbooks, I can give them out and people will scroll past to each other, conversing at the same time with me, and all this moving. This has already happened. How many times? When I brought to my master classes. By sketching when I'm with performances. By sketching was in the house mod, for example, in Garsubstrin in Novosibirsk. Yeah, people with interest flipping through sketchbooks and they are involved. And several people are involved at once. That is, you give information here at once to many, and with one you talking and with others flipping through your sketchbooks, and it's interesting. And they see others. Who has what open? If this one you brought, well, actually, you seem to bring the screen to the audience. And who saw that screen? That's who saw that screen. Well, that, and well done. Somehow, I do not know. I will not bring 10 sketchbooks. And do not ask them to flip through the gallery. Everyone understands that. Well, people polish as if immediately. Get tired, or they will talk. Well, that is, no one will sit and bury themselves with in galleries pictures of drawings. Well, no one. And sketchbooks are natural sketchbooks. They will constantly happen. Therefore here, and that has value. And at Sketchbooks Parade, presentation, workers, creative, also a huge amount of value. Lessons on my schedule in the description of the video in the profile cap. My name is Eduard Kichigin. Sketching iPad is a luxury or a necessity. That's what I'm gonna say. For example, I've been doing this sketching topic for years. And before I had enough, totally had enough sketchbook. You do your some project sketches. You always have a sketchbook on your pocket, and anytime you can do your sketch. Well then, I got an iPad. In fact, he appeared because of that. What can I do in it? 3-dimensional sketches. That is me taking my sketching technique. I transfer here to this drawing. There is no difference in which program, at least Procreate. I usually do mental canvas. Well, or you can take there. The sketchbook program works fine too. Well, I usually use the mental canvas program here, because I can do my sketches and arrange them in a 3-dimensional plane. And it works very well. Therefore, from my sketchbook point of view, iPad for this sketching is totally not a necessity, but is a very comfortable thing. According to statistics, you assign a project or send concepts, and you need to edit, or you need to take, for example, interior photos, and draw some kind of layout on it, or some other such actions to perform. This is straight, super comfortable, because the screen is on it. Let's say photography, plot, plan, and you can on it already. First concept, first types of approximation already generate. Like, well, just for once too. The same can be done there on the printed plan or paper pics. But for this, the paper still needs to be printed. Well, there are pros everywhere. And iPad is doing a great job there with his tasks. So not just to need to draw, need to understand what's your task row, which ones can successfully close the iPad. And if you need it, that is the point of buying I acquired. I like it. Good stuff, like subscription. My name is Eduard Kichigin, and lessons on my schedule in the description of the video and in the profile cap. Did iPad democratize the artist profession? Tool availability versus need for fundamental skills. Well, we are talking about that type. Anyone can take this. Anyone can take a program like Procreate and draw some pretty stuff there. Well, I think that nothing happens. You are. And before you could, for example, do such strange life hacks. And many it infuriated. For example, people took such a different stylus, were taking tablet vacuum, took photos and in photos there, art stuff. In Photoshop or in Corel, painter painted on top of the image. As if here they painted picturesquely. They do digital art. Actually, they were just smudging pictures, and it was straight super popular. But it did not do this to the artists of man. This can go into illustration tasks. Well, when there were no neural networks there, which style well for different types of drawing and painting. It's just as if good. But if you take and solve an illustration problem, well, you don't draw an image with zero. You just generate. Well, generate as much as you like. As if. Now here is this topic on the height. I think thereafter some time, everything will come to the same state as before. Generated images. Klepartovsky used to be also a huge number. So what started them? Power to generate each person practically. So what? A huge number of these photo banks were before. And anyone could take advantage of it. Well, people have fun. Well, cool, actually, it's a good tool. Me, for example, covers for my videos. Doing in Neuron. That's super cool looking and pretty fast. Therefore, that's the kind of thing. Well, the other something doesn't make anyone an artist. She just makes it easier. Well, some number of tasks. If go there into activities under some task, then you will face a huge number of questions, which will just have some fashionable iron. No way to solve impossible. You need a base. If you want to be an artist, if you want to draw just quick, pretty, then you can just be a sketcher, like me for example, and my sketching and quick drawing lessons in the description of the video and in the profile cap like subscription. My name is Eduard Kichigin. Digital sketching and analog sketching. How iPad divided these two concepts and translated. Mass consciousness. Digital sketching. Well, for example, I work in sketchbooks. Have you seen the huge amount of sketchbooks I have? Have you seen a huge amount of numbers? Which I do. There is also a huge amount of, creating 3D. For example, there are two. Well, not a huge amount, but pretty much. For example, via what I use. And these are the things. They do not replace each other, just 'cause they all have special value, which I just need. I need her. I use it and she works really well. iPads, their tasks, well, because I need a parade way anywhere. Anytime, where I don't have a laptop, no, my computer. Demonstrate what? Well, parts of my portfolio, either paintings or projects or my sketches or my presents I have to open like this, show, and it works perfectly. He is small, he is super comfy. Everything is fine. If I need absolute reliability or convenience or these are, well, straight sensations cool or sophisticated artistic. Artistic weight. I take, of course, sketchbook and paper because with natural materials. Here is this garbage. She will never compare. She had. I have not known there for decades to compare. She didn't compare. Well, I guess that nothing radical will happen in the future either. We are very similar to technological. As if we came to the technological ceiling. Because here it has not changed for a long time. And we have to admit that for other parts. There are also other parts. So I am, for example, in this one, iPad, wearing sketchbooks. Sometimes I wear a laptop. If I leave somewhere on a trip and don't want to be left without my means of production, like subscription. My name is Eduard Kichigin. The iPad cancelled the sketchbooks. Well, there is such an iron. There are sketchbooks and sketchbooks. It's like last century. The iPad is like real and we're private. Well, these are old school diaries. Now theme. Diary. What was before type diary right now as if the story. And before, it wasn't a public, private story. And right now, super public, public story. Here's the diary from earlier. Stories now. And how it all goes. There is a big buzz in that. To hear it is to do a story with a diary. I once, a long time ago, 100 years ago, did such a thing. Now diaries have become public, and so the tools for them are like this. But still, these topics overlap, because here it is. Anyone can use a, and since anyone can do it, then, in fact, this is everything. What comes out of here? It's the same for everyone. And if you do something with your hands, and these things are already stuffed in the story, for publicity, well, as for publicity, then they can already do it. Honestly, few want to do. This is very interesting. Therefore, for such unique twist and private twist, then better, of course, classic theme with diary and with crabooking. And with all that, if just you make out of your life, from his story, well, brand and all the time post everything in the story, then here it is also great. Like subscription. My name is Eduard Kichigin. I will tell a very strange introverted thing. Here is an iPad. There is, for example, sketchbook or well their album sheet and you draw in public. For example, you went outside or in a cafe draw. And that's two different approaches. When you work with, here with an iPad. Essentially, this is to me as an introvert, maybe even much better than a sketchbook because if I use Lee 4, that's a horror. Do I use an easel or? Well, I use sketchbook. Everyone sees what I draw, and here comes this art process. And everyone wondering, and I know if I do not want to. If, for example, at me iPad, I seem to be sitting, maybe I draw there. Maybe I'm doing a presentation. Maybe I'm flipping through a book. Maybe I'm writing something well infographic, some business notes. But maybe I don't draw. And that's it for introverts, I think, is very important. Because you are, well, as if you draw. And as if you do not draw. And that's iPad helping thus a little. Socially hide. I do not know who it matters. But here's me, personally important. So iPad well helps hide yourself a little. During such creative pro from. What? Well, when you do such a thing like subscription. My name is Eduard Kichigin.